Next, we'll have our panel discussion, which is understanding about non-traditional asset classes in S-REITs. Again, I would like to invite all these distinguished guests, Kenny himself, Wealth Advisory Director and REIT Specialist representing REIT Savvy. And of course, Cecilia Tan, CEO for Sasseur REIT, George Liao, CEO for Elite UK REIT, and of course, Emilia Tan, Director, Research and FinLead from SGX Group. Welcome.
Test. Can you hear me right? Okay. So panelist discussion, I want to make it more lively. All right. So for a start, maybe let's Emilia to introduce herself, because sometimes when I look at Emilia title, I also a bit confused. Research and FinLead, right? Do you know what's FinLead? Okay, never mind. I will ask let Emilia to explain what's FinLead. What do you do in SGX?
In short, is to let everybody know about the Singapore market. Okay, jokes aside, I'm from the Research and FinLead team. This is the in-house SGX research team. So we are a bit different from other research houses, broker research teams, where a lot of the research is actionable recommendation with a target price. For us, because we are a stock exchange, so we are in a very unique position. We don't have recommendations, we don't have advice. A lot of the content that we put out is more educational. And of course, we work with a lot of our listed companies to get the message out, because we have 600 over stocks. As investors, it's very hard to keep track of all 600, even ourselves also, right? We're always learning more about companies. So we work a lot with companies to profile a lot of the story, to let investors know about the vibrant market of our stock market. So you sometimes see our content on the SGX website, on our newsletters, in the Business Times, radio, TV. These are partners that we work with. And of course, we also have the KOLs like Kenny that we work very closely with to feature, some of our different sectors in the Singapore market. FinLead, interesting one also. FinLead actually stands for Financial Literacy. So we also run the SGX Academy. This is our investor education and outreach arm. We do a lot of programs, courses to equip investors with the knowledge when it comes to investing, trading, because for us, we always believe that financial wellness, right? Talking about your future planning, retirement planning, all that is important, right? With food inflation at 2.4%, we cannot also keep our savings in the bank account and just buy subscribe to T-bills, for example. It's not enough. We've got to think of more. Yeah. So in short, that's what we do over here. Yeah. Thank you.
Emilia, you can talk a lot. Emilia actually also having a call, but she's recovered already when I have time to talk. Okay. So Josh, just give us an introduction on Elite UK REIT. What is Elite UK REIT?
Yeah, thanks, Kenny. Hi, good evening and Happy New Year. My name is Josh. I'm the CEO of Elite UK REIT, as introduced. So I think we titled this slide, we uploaded SGX today, called Secure Income from UK Government Leased Properties. Quite a mouthful, but we're trying to make it as simple as possible. Just to explain the sort of properties that we have, if you have read about social welfare, which is slowly making its way into the Singapore sort of context, that's quite prevalent in developed nations, in UK certainly. And social welfare is if you have lost your job and you need some financial assistance from the government, you can actually walk into these job centres that's all around the UK. And our key occupier here is the Department of Work and Pension. They run the job centres in the UK, and there's a policy that these job centres needs to be within 20 minutes of bus or train travel. That's why they're dotted all around the UK. We don't own all the job centres in the UK. We own the majority of them, 136 job centres in the UK. And for these assets that we have, they are leased to the UK government to operate as job centres. And they're also triple net in nature. What it means by triple net is that the tenant will have to take care of running the property, taking care of utilities, security guard, gardening, so on and so forth. And I think one of the more exciting things that we have announced in the market in April last year is that, we will tweak our investment strategy slightly to now start to look at the living sector assets. So we were born, I think, in 2020 in IPO as an elite commercial REIT. In April, we announced this slight change, but also we changed our names to Elite UK REIT. I think I think we were just having this banter outside. Are we office? Are we commercial? Not quite the same because the job centers that we have, they are probably a bit more like community centers. So it's not as if where you can get SGX to start an office in the community center or a bank to open a branch in the community center. It's a bit different. And these are quite purpose built and for their sort of use. So when we come to the end of the lease, I think most of the time we will renew these leases, and sometimes we don't, right? But majority of the time we do. So it's good to have a plan B. I always like to have an alternative plan. And up to April last year, what we could do is to sell them or to let them to probably another government department. So now with this living sector, we could actually reposition some of these assets into student accommodation as well as built-to-rent residential. And you remember that I mentioned that these assets need to be well located. And guess what? Student accommodation and built-to-rent residential also need to be well located. And finally, I guess these assets that we own, they are counter-cyclical. And they're non-discretionary, meaning to say, whether it's a good day or a bad day, these will always be well utilized. In fact, in times of recession, in tough times, people go back to school to re-educate themselves, to prepare for better days, or they go to the job centers to get a financial benefit. So that's our thought process.
Yeah, that's not a short introduction.
Sorry.
No problem. Okay, so the next one, I will let Cecilia Tan to introduce Sasseur. Actually, she just came back yesterday on one of the tour. I will let her to explain. And by the way, hints, this is one of the questions in the quiz. Okay, Cecilia.
Hello, just make sure that everyone can. Okay, so Sasseur, I think some of you may or may not be familiar with us. Until today, we are known to be the first outlet mall REIT listed in Asia. Of course, now China have also started their own China REIT market. There are also some outlet malls REIT got listed, but we are still in front of them because we got listed way back in 2018. I think our sort of REIT positioning is actually pretty straightforward and very unique. We right now focus 100% in China. And we invest in a portfolio of a very specialized retail format called outlet malls. Anybody doesn't know what is outlet mall? I trust that most of you would have gone to some outlet mall. The nearest is, of course, the Johor Premium Mall, Johor Premium Outlet, JPO, right? That is the most popular. But for those of you, who have not been to China, you will realize that China outlet mall actually very, very different. And I must say, China has always been a very controversial subject matter. So for us as Sasseur, it has been been quite a bit of a, just now he used the word roller coaster. That's me. Okay, we've been through a roller coaster pre-COVID, into COVID, and post-COVID. But I also met some of our unit holders here. I think thank you for your support, for really being on this journey with us. So one of those things Kenny mentioned, I think one of the challenges, I think 100% the REITs with 100% overseas assets like ourselves in Elite is that our assets are not in Singapore, right? So there's a lot of difficulty in terms of connecting our unit holders with what am I actually investing in. Okay, I can tell you outlet mall, I can describe everything to you, but until you go and see for yourself, because if you invest in a Fraser Centre Point Trust, you can go and visit malls. You have a very safe sense of, yes, I'm investing in this. So to Kenny's point is that I've been thinking about how I bring the outlets to my unit holders. So what we did is that we actually collaborated with Chan Brothers. And I think when we launched that tour, I think I received a lot of positive comments that is such an innovative strategy. So what we did with Chan Brothers is that we actually created an 8-day, this is the first time we collaborated 8-day Yunnan tour because we have an outlet in Kunming. So this is not your ordinary Chan Brothers 8-day Yunnan tour. This is one with outlet shopping. And we launched that giving priority to our unit holders. So I went with them on this trip because I wanted to understand the whole experience. So there were 10 plus 1, the one is me lah. Okay, so we kept it small. Majority are my unit holders. So later this is a promotional video that we're going to show you, and this video is made all in-house by my China colleagues in Kunming, very high quality. Okay, and as to the what we achieved at the tour, we will be rolling out more publicity in the next few weeks. So follow us on our social media. So enjoy the video.
有朋自远方来，无亦乐乎。亲爱的朋友们，欢迎你们来到美丽的七彩云南，四季如春的春城昆明。这里是鲜花的海洋，这里是彩云的故乡，这里有26个少数民族，带来26种独特文化风情，更有数不胜数的美食美景，也会令您流连忘返。最重要的是，您熟悉的沙之船昆明奥莱将给您带来与众不同的愉悦体验。我们期待和您一起走过充满回忆的2024年，迎接更具挑战和机遇的2025年，用精彩的里程开启新的篇章，让诗和远方晕染美好时光。
Hello， 亲爱的朋友们，你们好！你们即将在这里度过2天1夜，让我带领你们提前揭秘本次旅途的亮点吧。乘坐早班机一路奔波到达昆明的你们，一定饥肠辘辘。由拥有中国5亿用户的服务巨头美团网评为火锅金冠店、火锅人气榜第1名的二郎港重庆火锅，带来一顿热辣鲜香的美食。用一顿火锅打消疲劳，我会带您加入跨年狂欢的队伍。起源于3000多年前，具有云南少数民族特色的非遗打歌穿越时空而来，少数民族独有的庆贺方式带来独特的体验。今夜我们相聚在沙之船昆明奥莱，烟火起，照人间，我们一起迎接崭新的2025年。愿新年胜旧年，欢愉且胜意，所愿皆成，喜悦无边。新年的第1天，元气满满。这一天，你们将会看到沙之船昆明奥莱用热诚的服务和超值的商品迎接2025年的第1波顾客。作为我们最亲爱的朋友，你们将专享直接升级白金卡的尊崇服务。除了在优享商家折扣基础上再享白金卡会员折扣，全程最底价商品和云南独有商品等您挑选。除了具有超值性价比的折扣商品，我们还拥有2025年当年当季的新款商品。在满足购物的同时，作为全国首家拥有全业态的奥莱，吃住娱也能满足悠闲时光的需求。星巴克、瑞幸是不同需求深咖人士的聚集地。走出国门的霸王茶姬，以健康饮品为优的喜茶，新品层出不穷的书艺烧仙草，多样化满足口味。时光城维拓乐园、戴维影院、戴维 KTV 是一家老小放松娱乐的快乐园。12月，北方已经进入萧瑟的隆冬，云南却依旧是风花雪月的浪漫。它是世界的花园，是孤勇者的狂欢，是中国世居民族最多的省份。我们希望你们亲自来领略云南的魅力，以及坐落在这片浪漫、热情红土地上沙之船昆明奥莱的魅力。沙之船昆明奥莱，欢迎您！
Thanks, Kenny. So what you actually saw is the actual outlet. The two ladies, the first lady is actually the general manager of the outlet mall. So, she's the one who is responsible for really generating all the rental income that will be, collected by the REIT. And the second lady is actually my colleague who is responsible for all the publicity. And this is 100% produced in-house. Okay, and what you saw just now, right? Exactly, this is exactly what we did when I brought the team. They had the dinner at 二郎港 Chongqing Huoguo. and then we also let them go shopping. Okay, I wouldn't spill the beans too much because later in the next few weeks we're going to disclose to you exactly what has transpired at the outlet for this tour. But I would say it's a huge eye-opening because all the unit holders who went first time to Yunnan, some even first time to China. So, you know, they have never seen an outlet mall like this because you can see we got cinema and we got entertainment.
Yeah, not the typical JPO, Johor Premier Outlet, very, very different. But by the way, I will be visiting their Chongqing Mall in April. But somehow I will be follow my company trip to visit there, right? So Cecilia said that if we have a big enough people, anyone of you want to join, she can personally fly down there to be a tour guide. This is what she told me, right?
You are trying to reschedule my travel plans.
I was in Chongqing in October, November. It was so fabulous, but I didn't get a chance to visit. The next trip that I do there, I have to visit.
Yeah, if any one of you, if you're going with a big group, with all our friends, I think maybe can arrange.
Yes, of course. You can contact my colleague Helen. She's head of investor relations. Yeah, if you've got a big group, a special group, you know, just contact us. We will try and do something special for you.
All right. Okay. So come back to. That's not the short introduction. It's quite detailed. All right. So come back to our topic. Basically, we want to understand what kind of non-traditional asset class moving forward. So Amelia, walk us through the traditional asset class for SGX listed since the first Capital Mall Mall Trust, right, listed in 2003. How's the whole thing evolved?
2002. Our REIT sector now, okay, don't consider this year. Technically, is 22 years old because the first REIT listed that was Capital Mall Trust listed in 2022, right? And traditionally, there are always 4 big sectors in the Singapore market. The 4 big sectors are always your retail, office, hospitality, industrials. Right? Those are traditionally the bigger sectors. But if you look at all our close to 40 REITs today, split by sector, which segment is actually the biggest? I should have put this as a quiz question also, then we give a gift. Never mind, next time. Our biggest sector now is actually diversified segment. And that is not because we have seen more of these diversified listings, REIT listings coming to the market, but because a lot of our existing REITs are also evolving themselves, right? So our REIT market's 22 years old. The first 5 years from 2002 to 2006, a lot of our REIT listings are all the Singapore asset listings. So those names that we are all quite familiar with, the long-time names, Escort, Ascender, so on and so forth. Then in 2007 to about 2013, we started to have a lot more of these REITs with Asia-Pacific assets coming to the Singapore market. Then from 2014 until now, that's about 10 years already, all the REIT listings so far have been all foreign asset listings. So including Sasseur, Elite, commercial REIT back then, right? So we actually in the last few years, we haven't seen a REIT listing with a pure play Singapore asset. A lot of them are all these foreign listed assets. And we've seen a lot of first outlet mall REIT, first euro denominated REIT, first pound denominated REIT, so on and so forth. A lot of new asset classes coming to market. And of course, over time, we have new sectors like data center, grocery, outlets, self-storage hub, outlet mall REITs. We've got also nursing homes, right? We've also got the government office buildings, so on and so forth. New sectors that are coming to market. Not just that, the existing previous traditional asset REITs have also evolved and started to expand their mandates, right? Either expanding their mandates into different sectors. For example, back then, if you recall, during COVID, CRCT, CapitaLand Retail China Trust, traditionally is retail assets in China, shopping malls. They expanded their mandate to include business parks and also some of the offices. So they are now called CapitaLand China Trust, right? So they've expanded their mandate to include new investment asset classes. We also have REITs that have expanded geography mandates. For example, Parkway Life REIT, they always have Japan, Singapore assets, right? They always talk about third market. Then their third market now is Europe with the France nursing homes. And then, of course, Elite has also recently expanded the mandate to also look into the UK living sector. And in fact, I'm also quite interested to hear from Josh, any updates over there on the UK living segment and also this new application that you guys have applied, which is the data center planning application. So as you can see, our REIT segment has evolved over the years, and those are really opportunities for investors to tap into these kind of REIT markets and also asset classes. Because otherwise, if you want to invest in a data center, how are you going to invest in a data center? Buy a data center, is it? You can't really do that. And therefore, even the REIT Association in the US, NAREIT, they also state that not just for retail investors, institutional investors always have REITs as part of their portfolio because it allows them to diversify into different asset classes, get that kind of exposure. Otherwise, with real estate, it's not easy to get that kind of exposure and also liquidity with the ease of transacting the units. Yeah.
So actually, we can see that actually a trend is changing to really more a diversified sector, and I think that may be from Elite when you first come on board, you start to have this idea in mind. Actually, just walk us through what was your thinking process when you first joined as a CEO, and what was the rationale?
Sure. I think the change of name, I think, is really to better reflect the assets. I think when people, sort of look at it, prima facie, it feels like it is, a Grade D office. But then again, it's like, in Singapore, you wouldn't expect the government to work out of an MBFC or a nice building like this, right? In same way, when you're providing essential services, these buildings needs to be really fit for purpose, just for the purpose. It doesn't need to be fancy, right? It just needs to serve its purpose. And this is what the assets really are. So when you call it commercial, there is perhaps a bit of a sort of a connotation that, it is like a MBFC equivalent or trying to be, which is never the case. We're always comfortable in our own skin. We like our sort of assets, and they tend to be very resilient as well. As I mentioned, the location is really second to none. These are, not just in London, they're all around in the UK, and they tend to be, given their requirement to be, really close to bus and train travel, they tend to be the main street or the street behind main street, not too far.
Actually, I visited one of the, I think, 2 property in UK when I was touring the UK, because I want to see what exactly they are investing.
Right.
Because our perception is a commercial office. Let me just think of how the commercial office in Singapore looks like, right? But in UK, are totally different. If you're looking for similar commercial office, you don't see it. Basically, it's looking at red bricks.
Yeah.
Right. You can't really differentiate. Maybe you can elaborate.
Yeah, I mean, the red bricks is actually a good way to imagine it, because these actually, many of them are built in the 70s, 80s, and they tend to be very sturdy, masonry, properties. In some of them, some of the cases, because they're so strong, you can actually add in additional floors on top of the roof in order to expand the property. So there are all these opportunities that we'll look at from time to time. And then I think the living sector bit also was another thing that we wanted to look into, given the complementary nature of the location. These assets also, as I mentioned at the start, rather counter-cyclical and non-discretionary in nature. If we ask around, we did a bit of a listening tour, and we sort of poll our investors, why did they invest in Elite REIT, UK REIT at the start in IPO? I think many of them came back with the response like, well, we like the UK government credit, right? It's as sovereign as you get. The UK government is AA rated in terms of credit risks, so that's a big benefit. During COVID, for example, many REITs, many landlords always worry about whether they can collect a rent. You can book the rent, you can put it in the P&L, but 3 months later, is there going to be even a rent to be collected, right? And then you have to write it off in arrears. For us, we don't have that problem. We sleep soundly at night. The government is good paymaster. They pay us 3 months in advance. That's something not many of our peers would have the benefit of.
Okay. So, Cecilia, right, maybe we just explain what is the difference between Sasseur REIT, right, compared to the traditional retail in China. Because if you look at some of the retail REIT in China, when you heard about retail REIT in China, you're scared, right? But based on the performance itself, I think that Sasseur really stand up. What's so different?
Yeah, you know, because of my work, I travel to China a lot. And to Kenny's point, really, I think, as you know, China is very progressive in terms of their e-commerce, right? And they have the highest adoption rate. So the traditional retail format is truly facing a lot of pressure, and many actually did not survive. So, you know, we see very old departmental stores. They've been in Shanghai for 30 years, closing down, eventually giving up because they really cannot compete, because they really lose the value proposition. So if I were to sort of categorize what is really the differentiation between an outlet mall like Sasseur outlet and a traditional mall in China, I wouldn't name names. I would suggest 5 big points. Firstly is the business model. I think outlet mall, the fundamental point about outlet mall is really meeting supply and demand for discounted branded goods. Okay, so fundamentally, it allows the brands to really get rid of older or excess inventory through selling at discounted prices, and allow the consumers to enjoy branded goods at much cheaper levels than original prices. So branded and discounted is the core value proposition, but you don't get that at the traditional retail mall, right? Traditional retail mall is that they would sell you at full price, and only at running promotional activities then you get discounts. But in outlet, the moment you go to outlet, every shop is at a discount, right? Some of the investors who have been to outlet, you see that. Okay, so this is a very key distinctive point. And the other thing is, in outlets, right, mainly they are all specialty shops. No big departmental store, no major anchor tenant. Okay, because in outlets, right, we churn a lot of our brands are fashion related. Okay, and this is where we make the money and we churn. But whereas in the traditional retail, you know, they tend to rely on anchor tenants because they want them to occupy the space and you know, collect that rental. So they needed more certainty. But in the outlet, because of the nature of the outlet, we wanted consumers to come and, you know, refresh, say, their fashion wear every time. We actually cater much more to fashion related categories of goods. And just off on the video, you will actually probably get a sense. Our Sasseur outlets are like destination lifestyle oriented outlets. They are not, they are going beyond the clinical type of outlets. We offer you cinema, karaoke. In fact, in our Bishan outlet, we have an outdoor strawberry farm. Okay, in our Hefei outlet, we have 4 outlets under the REIT. The Hefei outlet, we have a zoo. So the way we think about outlet in China, it is much more holistic. Because if you think about it, if outlet just remain as outlet, how often can you go to the outlet for shopping?
Animal belongs to you or not?
Animals belong to the tenants, so, you know, it's creating another reason, become a destination, right, for people to bring their children and family to visit. So in a way, we also, within the outlet space, Sasseur outlet, also in differentiation. And this is actually related to what our business strategy is, a super outlet concept, 超级 outlet. So the super outlet is, what is so super? Super is not like superpower, but super in the sense that what is within the whole outlet, we will have a key attraction point. For example, in Hefei, the zoo, the super outlet becomes super children. So they have a super children, that's why the zoo is to cater to that kids. And then in certain of the outlets where we have a big component of sports, then we have a super sports. In one of our sponsors outlet in China, Xi'an, there's a super farm because they have a big place where they sell a lot of farmers' products. So within our own Sasseur outlet, we also try to create the distinctive points. And the other thing to compare to outlet, traditional outlet mall, which actually is also quite reflective of in Singapore, you will see F&B as a very high component and services as very high component. Now, if you go to outlet mall, you're not going to see any beauty salon. You're not going to see any hair salon, okay? Because it just doesn't fit within the whole positioning. And F&B, if you look at by comparison, F&B only like comprise less than 5% of our total trade mix. But for example, if you take you know, the comparables, CapitaLand China Trust, from what I can see, you know, the F&B is about 38%. So it's very, very distinctive, you know, the differences. In terms of product focus, as I mentioned, they will have like supermarket electronics. So ours is very fashion related because of the nature of the outlet. And we cater mainly to also a lot of women, men, fashion, and children. Whereas the traditional ones, they will have all the services. Okay, but recently, with the evolving trends, we now have Zhou Dafu. We also got shop selling gold now. Okay, so why am I raising this point? Because this is so following.
You sell gold in outlet?
Yes, we have Zhou Dafu in outlet because we're seeing the trends. Consumers come and they also want to buy gold. So we managed to bring Zhou Dafu into our outlets now.
For discount?
Cecilia, yeah, I wanted to ask, is it discount?
Yes, yes, there are certain elements of benefits when you buy an outlets. Yes, yeah. But of course, gold also got standard gold price. So there are certain things which is comparable, but there are some additional benefits at the outlets. Okay, so this is then of course in terms of the mall management. Okay, the way we run our Sasseur outlets is this. So to Josh's point, right? You talk about you want to be able to sleep at night and collect rental. Okay, now in China, this is the concept we call lian ying. That means this is a joint management. Okay, now the joint management doesn't mean the mall manager sort of do more in partnership with the tenants. Okay, it is a more proactive kind of management. So you can see actually it's very operational intensive. Okay, now this has to go back with, I jump a little bit. I got to talk about the lease structure. And I know this was a second question, but let me bring that forward because this is also very distinctive of outlet. Now in the traditional retail, basically most of the tenants pay fixed rent. Okay, maybe some with fixed plus turnover, but usually the fixed rent should be the higher proportion of the overall rent. In outlet malls, I would say majority of the leases are almost 100% turnover rent. Okay, now, the nature of this is because we want to have a strong alignment with the tenants. And also we want to make sure that the whole occupancy cost is at a very manageable rate with the tenant. And there is also this strong alignment. If let's say we help the tenants, we drive footfall, right? And the tenants can convert their footfall into actual sales. Okay, our business model is we take a percentage of the sales. So if you think about it, right? So as a mall operator, we really need to devise a lot of promotional activities and working in hand with all the brands to drive not only traffic. Our big focus is sales conversion. But I would say in the traditional mall, their focus is just drive traffic. Whether they can convert into sales or not, actually is secondary to them.
Fixed rent.
Yes, because they got fixed rent. Okay, so because of this, you will then realize that in terms of how we collaborate with the brands and collaboration is very, very unique. So in the outlets, right, because of this, okay, to add on this point before I forget, now because the sales turnover, right, so how do we make sure that the tenants can actually report actual sales, then we can collect the correct level of rental income? In outlet malls, all the sales are centralized POS. So if you were to go to a tenant's shop, you pay, right? The money goes straight to our centralized cash collection. Now, this is really powerful because that means I have access to real-time data. Now, in the traditional retail mall, even if you have sales turnover rent, you won't know until the tenants submit sales data to you. But there's a time lag, what you say, time lag. And then you've got to have a process to go and validate to make sure the tenant didn't under-report the sales so that you under-collect the rent. But in our case, it's real-time data, and we hold the cash for 45 days. Okay?
Josh, 90 days.
Yeah, but these are retail people, but still, okay, we hold the cash for 45 days because you know what, we need to do accounts reconciliation still, and making sure after that we refund the majority of cash back and just keep only the rental income. So, in a sense, we also sleep very well at night because the cash already on hand. So, the bad debts is actually quite negligible. But the key thing is we have information on hand. I got real time. So every day they submit data. Every day I can see which brands are selling and what consumers are buying. This is really powerful.
Your cash is in terms of revenue, right?
Yeah, the sales proceed. The sales.
It's a lot, right? So how are you going to use the money? It's additional cash to you.
No. So these are tenants' money, right? So we cannot really use. But because it's a cash flow, right? Sometimes we put into sort of money market short term.
Oh, that means you also can put in the money market, lah.
Yeah, but we don't do that as a primary objective. But the primary objective is to make sure there is safety in the renter.
But the money market return will come back to the unit holder, no?
Yeah, but it's negligible, because this thing, the cash churn a lot. So this is not our core business. Our core business is not to make money from all this deposit. But my point is, there is safety in the cash that we hold and also there's accuracy because you should be able to reconcile with the cash register that's been made, and we will do the reconciliation against the receipts, right? So this is actually fundamentally very different from a traditional retail mall. But the other thing is also because of the nature of the outlets, right? We normally typically do not locate ourselves in the city center because we need to have a distance from the main brands. The main brands would not like the outlet mall to be too near to them. Can you imagine that will like, cannibalize their business? So usually there's a bit of a distance, but China is a very big market. Interestingly, people in China drive a lot. To them, driving 1 hour is like our driving 10 minutes, okay? So, whether the outlet mall is quite far away, but because if the outlet mall offers things of value proposition to them, they will really pack the whole family in the car and then go and spend half a day and a whole day at the outlet mall. Yeah, so I hope this sort of summarize some of the, I would say, the key distinctive features.
Yeah, I'm very interested and also interesting to know about cash part. So come to Josh, right? Your 30 days, what are you going to do after you collect the money upfront from a UK government?
90 days.
90 days, yeah.
So we have this very unique situation where we receive our rentals 3 months in advance, right? So what we've done is actually to take this and reduce our debt for that quarter. So say for example, I receive the rentals for January to March, right? I receive it in December. So when I get it in December, I used to pay down my debt. Then I think when it comes to March and September, when I pay out dividends, I draw back about debt. So you basically try to optimize the level of debt that you have, the gearing that you have. But more importantly, it actually reduces the financing costs. And I think that has been quite powerful. We have actually implemented this starting from last year, and this will actually start to flow through into our cost of debt. What happened was, I think previously there was a structure was not as favorable for us. We did the refinancing in July last year. We put in quite a substantial part of a revolving credit facility, so you can actually draw, borrow. So I think going forward, you see that our gearing will be slightly higher in March and September, but lower in December and June, because we pay dividends in the March and September.
Okay, so Josh, I need to ask about your future plan, right? Because after you have expanded the mandate to include the build to rent, it's a new term, BTR, right? Residential, and also your student accommodation itself, plus your data center. A data center is not your core competency, no?
Right,
Why
exactly.
you want to play with data center?
Well, no, actually, we're not playing with data center. Like the way you asked that question. We actually had one, and I would say that this is actually very one-off, opportunistic, property. So we've got this asset in Blackpool in north-western UK, England, and the tenant is actually just occupied 1/3 of this fairly large property. The other 2/3 is actually currently woodlands. There's a small pond and overflow car park. You can leave them as they are. But the best thing that we can do for our unit holders is try to think, what else can we do with this land? And I think we're quite blessed. There is actually a new data cable that runs all the way to the United States that actually landed at the Blackpool beach. This is, we're talking about 3 miles, less than 5 kilometers away. Further upfield, British Petroleum, BP, is also developing offshore wind farms. So this then becomes a very striking proposition as probably a low carbon potential data center with low latency, because the cable is brand new, it's not well utilized yet. So I think the local government has been very supportive. In October, we put in our planning permission. We're just waiting the outcome. So far, so good. We don't think there's any big issues. And hopefully in the coming weeks, months, we should be able to share more good news. The other thing that we have with regards to this particular property is that we've secured 60 MVA of power. Now that's a very, very precious commodity when it comes to data center. But also, as they say in Singapore, Hokkien, right? You just got to be clever, but you don't want to be overly clever, right? So yeah, thank you. I was afraid that my accent wouldn't get it right, but I think it's important that you don't bite off more than you can chew. So I think it will be, I wouldn't be credible if I told you I have a business plan for a data center and I'm going to become a data center REIT, right? I'll be a laughing stock as you guys walk out of this room. But I think, what we definitely want to do is to scrutinize every asset and see what else can we do with it to bring about the best value for unit holders, and that's what we have set out to do.
Hey, Amelia, actually, Josh shared with me when he want expand a mandate to the student accommodation and also the data center, that will have an uplift in terms of the price to book valuation. So based on your research, I believe that you have a lot of data. What is the premium that, okay, I have shown already, data center and also healthcare, basically they have traded at a higher premium, but what would be the SGX insight in terms of premium? Because we know that later we talk about the IPO, right? There will be a numbers of rumors, the new IPO coming up. Immediately, investor, you need to look at the valuation comparison, right? So on the SGX side.
It's a good question because data center is considered as specialized REITs. Specialized REITs in the last 2 years, they have been among the top best performing REIT subsegment, right? And in fact, before that, I was just taking a look at all the price to book value. So just to share, the entire S-REIT market on average, our price to book ratio now is at about 0.84 to 0.86, so about 0.85 times. Okay, and when we look at a longer historical term, it is actually trading at a 16% discount to the historical levels. So what this means is that currently what the REITs are trading at today is being discounted at close to 20%. And maybe that is why we are seeing retail individual investors coming in to pick up the sector. In the last 3 years, since 2022, when rates started to go up, over the last 3 years, 2022, 2023, and 2024, retail actually net bought $4 billion worth of REITs, maybe taking the opportunity to pick up a little more during the valuation dip, right? And when you look at the whole S-REIT sector today, which is about 0.8 times, it ranges across the different subsegments. The top two are actually trading above book value. So specialized REITs and healthcare REITs, they are among the higher range in terms of valuation. Their price to book on average is about 1.2 times or even higher, 1.2 to 1.25 times. On the other hand, the rest of the subsegments are trading below book value, right? So I guess why specialized REITs have been the sort of bright spot in that segment, a lot of that's got to do with what we're all quite familiar with nowadays, right? Everyone is, what are we using? Internet more and more these days. Big data, AI, cloud computing, there's increasingly a lot of demand for the need for data centers. And Singapore, data center rents actually across the board were considered one of the more expensive places when it comes to data rental rates for data centers. And so that is perhaps why data centers have been a bright spot over the last 1-2 years or so. Healthcare REITs also another bright spot, some of the analysts and investors have said. Why so? Perhaps the perception or the expectation that healthcare REITs, as it's got to do with hospitals, nursing homes, retirement homes, they're quite resilient in nature, right? Defensive, because you still need those assets regardless. Yeah, so those are the reason why we see some of these segments. And coming back to the primary market, right? I think everybody is looking at what's coming up in terms of the Singapore market for IPO. We are also keeping a watch there. I mean, we don't have insights that you guys don't know, right? We're also on the same side. We're also keeping a lookout over there. And I think what we have noted really from what we have noted at our end is 2024, acquisitions have started to pick up, right? Back in 2022, rates increased, the acquisitions really started to drop and decline, a bit dry. 2023, start to see a little bit, but 2024, acquisitions really picked up. The total amount of acquisitions, I think, have exceeded almost close to about $4.5 billion worth of assets being acquired by our REITs. In terms of fundraising activity, right, usually companies, they tap the capital markets after they're listed. That's called secondary fundraising. So your placements rights. Our REITs also do that. They continue to tap our market to raise more funds so that they can acquire more and also grow organically, right? Secondary fundraising, last year also, we saw a lot of activity coming back. $2.8 billion worth of secondary funds raised last year. And that is definitely much higher than the year before and in 2022. And last year, there were 2 REITs that saw their fundraising raise over $1 billion, right? That is the Keppel DC REIT acquisition because they acquired 2 new hyperscale data centers. The other one is Ion Orchard. CICT acquired Ion Orchard. So they did the fundraising to support that. And the fundraising have been oversubscribed. right? That shows that investors are, supporting the sector. And if you speak to some of the bankers out there, if you speak to some of the companies out there, they are also pretty optimistic with the secondary fundraising activity being active last year. A lot of the optimism is there that it bodes well for the primary market going into 2025. And this year, 2nd January, SGX celebrated one thing, our 25th anniversary. So you see the 25 outside our auditorium, we celebrated our 25th birthday. And DPM Gunn, he was here to do the opening speech. And I'm just going to read out a bit of what he mentioned on the IPO pipeline. He noted that, we continue in the REITs market to build onto our strengths, and seeing that REITs as a segment has been a success for us in 22 years, one of the younger REIT markets, we have expanded to the largest in Asia, ex-Japan. And also, he also noted a healthy IPO pipeline comprising of data centers, healthcare, industrial, and also accommodation assets. And there's good reason to be optimistic that we'll continue to be the listing destination for these REITs in Asia. And also because investors like yourselves, you guys are really familiar with the market, and that is why we have overseas REITs that are choosing Singapore as a destination. Yeah, and that's what we've seen in the last few years.
That's already happening, or rumors?
I mean, not rumors per se, but Centurion, they actually published an announcement yesterday. If you saw the news, Business Times also carried that, is that they did mention that they are looking with the intention of potentially spinning off some of the assets. So interesting segment over there, right? And these are continuously new segments that we are getting in the market, which is also good because, like I said earlier on, investors through REITs are getting that kind of exposure. Otherwise, it's not possible to get in terms of real estate. How are you going to buy a property? I mean, Singaporeans love real estate, right? Who doesn't? And with the rental yield, you have to deal with managing the property on your own, extra expenses. It's not going to be cheap and it's not going to be easy. Whereas investing into a REIT, your average distribution yield is about 6 to 7%. There are good REIT managers that are managing the REIT, right? And earlier on, Kenny talked about interest rates, the correlation. But what we have seen towards the end of last year is also not just interest rates that are impacting the REIT sector now, but beyond interest rates also, which is how the REIT managers are really growing the REITs, growing distributions, looking at, attracting the right tenants, like what Cecilia mentioned, and also doing some of these asset enhancements initiatives, right? You see our malls in Singapore, you can see them on the weekends. They are renovating, they are expanding the spaces so that they have more space to rent out, and then what that contributes into rental income, which will flow back into distributions.
Okay, Cecilia, you see a lot of things happening on the SGX side, a lot of IPO coming out, and Josh is doing something, adding more. Then what are you doing? Right, you're just staying with your four.
Hey, a lot of things happening in China also. Have you been reading Chinese news or not? Also, a lot of things happening in China as well, right? Yeah, so I know we have been listed we listed since 2018, but being a Chinese REIT, as you know, I think we were probably at the forefront of a lot of the policy effects of the Chinese government, and also the COVID. So, well, China really opened up only in 2023, but I think China is now going through a new economic phase. As there's no surprise, people read about low consumption spending in China. They still are having to deal with the property crisis. I think that's still ongoing, right? So with that, right, I think we should take a much more measured approach in relation to acquisition, because we still want to continue to invest in China. We still believe in the long-term fundamentals of the consumer market in China. And in fact, if you look at outlet malls, right, I think from our numbers, we have shown to be very resilient. While a lot of the retail malls in China really, could not survive the pressures of the competition and also the sudden drop in consumer, but you can see we continue to show fairly healthy sales number, and we continue to deliver, I would say, fairly stable returns to our unit holders, right? So in terms of the growth plans, I think we will continue to try to invest in what we have, continue to do better, to take advantage. If the consumption recovers, we already can be there to enjoy the full fledged of it.
Which China city you're traveling the most now?
Me, okay, last year I traveled the most to Kunming. Okay, the reason, because when we look at our portfolio, Kunming had some, among all the outlets, Kunming's location is the most disadvantaged. because it's really very far away from city center. And Kunming, right, is located in an area with low residential density.
The reason I ask because the sponsors still have a lot more. I try to dig up some information which more she want to Sasseur REIT go and acquire.
No, I mean, we look at this, right? We have to grow in terms of harnessing what we have and also looking for opportunities beyond what we do. But, you know, a bird in hand is always the most precious for us. And especially now with the environment in China continuing to be fairly unpredictable, we really need to solidify and make sure our outlet malls continue to be very competitive, because China now have a word called 很卷. When you go to China, everybody will call you 很卷. You know, 很卷 is that you keep going in circle, means super competitive and super pressurized. And indeed, in the whole year of 2024, when I went to China, I felt that very, very vividly, because as you can see, the whole vibe is actually quite slow. But I recently went on this Chan Brothers trip, right? Actually, I can feel that the whole sentiment is probably improving. Okay, in a sense that we still see a lot of crowds. And in fact, I was just looking at some flash data for the first 5 days of January and comparing it for, say, 2023 and 2024. Now, when we look at the first 5 days, that means January 1st to 5th, because January 1st is actually a public holiday, and usually a lot of people will come out shopping. 2024 was a much stronger 5 days compared to 2023. Okay, the reverse. 2024 was a weaker, because 2023 was the reopening. So when we compare the period, for the same period, there's a drop of 60% in sales at our portfolio. Okay, but when I look at the data again before I came, actually for the first 5 days, the sales is now have almost gone back to 2023 level. So okay, so I'm not looking at the numbers, but I'm looking at the trend, right? As a sign of sentiment, that hopefully that's also a sign where outlet malls continue to show very high level of value proposition, continue to stay relevant in an environment where people are looking for deep bargains. They will gravitate to outlet malls.
Okay.
Yeah.
I pause here for a while. There are QR code on the left and right monitor. If you have any specific question for the REIT manager, you can type in there. So I will look at one of the questions that one participant asked. This question is directing to, cannot see, right, direct to Josh.
Yep. Which one?
How come I cannot see? What are some of the impacts of Labour Party government change in the UK? In particular, what are some changes coming from autumn budget announced late last year? Actually, I asked you this question. I text you after the UK government and also tax regime. I asked immediately, what is the impact to your UK?
Yeah, you gave me some extra homework, which was good, because it was right after Deepavali, so I had 1 day to think about it. Then we sort of blast out our thoughts to our investors on our email alert list as well. But basically 4 ways I think this has benefited or may not affect us. So I think it's if you've been following this political landscape in the UK, I think you have heard that the Labour Party won the UK elections last year, the January elections, and that was a big win. And I think with the government change, everyone was very, very much watching very closely what the autumn budget would be. This would be the Labour Party's first budget in 14 years. The entire real estate industry in the UK really took a pause to wait for the budget to come out, and it finally did in the November. So 4 ways. One, I think it's the tax rates are increased substantially, and we're talking about capital gains tax. Now, but that's to Elite UK REIT. That is a very good reminder that we are regulated like a UK REIT. So we qualify under the UK REIT tax regime, meaning to say that we don't pay capital gains tax, we don't pay corporate income tax. While withholding tax is the same rate as all the other REITs that's listed in the UK. So we have this advantageous position, which other landlords, foreign landlords, including REITs, in this part of the world, do not have. So that's number one. Number two, I think quite a pleasant surprise to us, the Department of Work and Pensions, our key occupier, the government has announced that they're going to be employing 3,000 more workers. Now that's not a small number, and they're altogether 600 job centers in the UK, or properties that they occupy. So this 3,000 employees, that they will be hiring is in the fraud detection department. So I think they realize that there is a lot of leakages, a lot of funny business going on. And I think it's right. It's a very smart move to hire this 3,000. And I think pay a lot of dividends for the UK government. And I think many of them will land into our properties as well. So I think that's music to our ears. That the UK government, whilst they're cutting back on some other departments, they're increasing the operational budget of DWP by 6%. So that's number two. Number three, they have hired 300 people, 300 new planners to unlock the planning system. Now, unlike Singapore, I think URA has done a fabulous job, but Singapore is really the exception, not the norm outside of this part of the world. When it comes to planning, when you need to change a use, generally, I think it takes some time because the planners need to consider the case on a case-by-case basis. So hiring these 300 people will actually help to expedite the planning process in general. So I think that fourth way is, how do you fund this budget, right? So one is you cut back on some government spending, but I think they're going to be borrowing more. And also they increase the insurance contribution by employers like ourselves, the REIT manager, we have a small team there. So we'll be paying more contribution to healthcare. And that's going to be inflationary. So for us, I think even before the UK budget was announced in November, when we hedged our debt, we did a refinancing in July, we hedged in August, we hedged it at much lower level. So we're locked in for the next 3 years. We are about 87% hedged as of the last time we reported in November. So I think, we're locked away. We have the foresight. When we hedge, I think the SONIA 3 years swap rate was about 3.8%. Today I hear it's about 4.1%. So we're really in the money on this.
Okay, we'll go to the last question. Okay, basically it's to three of you. What is the 2025 outlook? Because I think that this is the most interesting and also most important question for everyone. What is the 2025 outlook for REITs, right? For Sasseur REIT, for Elite UK REIT, and also from SGX point of view. All right, Cecilia, start first.
Yeah, I think 2025, of course, everybody hopes to have a better year. I think all eyes are on Trump because he is that wild card, that could swing, whether is it for you or against you. But of course, where China is concerned, Sasseur REIT, we do face China unique opportunities and China unique challenges. Okay, so now in terms of the challenges, I think it's no secret. I think clearly renminbi is under a lot of pressure. So from a risk management standpoint, that's the thing that me and my team, we focus a lot on trying to be sort of be more proactive in our hedging. So when we already see the renminbi weakening, we actually try to hedge forward a lot more at a better rate, try to lock in, right? So this is because you cannot control some of these external factors, but you cannot eliminate the risk, but you try to sort of reduce the impact. Then the other thing is the good thing about China right now in terms also of the opportunities is that it's a historical low interest rate environment, right? Because you can see since September, the Chinese government has been they push out a lot of liquidity to the banks and the stock market, right? Try to create a lot of wealth effect. Throwing money into the system. But of course, I think right now we are not seeing the full works of that effect. Hopefully, we can see that coming through in 2025. Now, how do we take advantage at Sasseur? One of those things, Kenny, why you skip the page on gearing? Because we are number one in gearing, being the lowest gear rate in Singapore. Why didn't you give me the honor to do that, right?
Later, my quiz, you ask about it.
Okay, right. So this is to our advantage because right now, if you look at our loan portfolio, we have more than 50% in renminbi. Now, before that, we did refinancing in 2023. So that time, we took the opportunity, we increased our proportion of renminbi. And we continue to look for opportunities to increase the proportion of renminbi because renminbi now, historical rate. In fact, they just cut the loan prime rate again in October, right? So loan prime rate now is below 4%, historically low. So this is really the opportunity for us to go and try to club more renminbi. That will actually then bring the whole cost structure down and give more buffer for DPU growth to Amelia's points, right? So as a REIT manager, despite the environment being very challenging, we also look for bright sparks in the environment that we operate in. So I think for Sasseur REIT, the opportunities is also, as I mentioned, we are beginning to see hopefully a turnaround in consumer sentiment. Just looking at 5-day data, right, gave me a lot of confidence that hopefully if this trend sustain, we should see a pickup, in consumer spending. Because the thing about China is very interesting. The Chinese people love to spend, but right now they're not spending because there's so much uncertainty in the environment. But if you look at some of the data points out there, this is like the historical high savings rate for them. So when the glass is half empty and the glass is half full, you interpret it differently, right? If I look at the glass is half full, that means the other half full is the release of those savings that could come out into discretionary spending. And definitely, that's why I talk about how we want to continue to invest in our existing portfolio to position that, when that full consumption will swing back.
Okay, thank you. Elite, UK REIT.
Yeah, so I take this question firstly as what do I see for the entire REIT sector, right? I think there's some uncertainties with Trump coming in. And then I think, but for a REIT manager, for professionals like us, to throw our hands up and say, oh, too bad, nothing we can do, just wait one more year. I think it's really a lazy thing for a professional to do. But at least what can you do as a REIT manager? What can you do as a professional, as a CEO, or, and you can do so many things. And for us, elites, especially, it's about sweating the assets, be it a data center, and then you try to get the best outcome, then you sell it, or trying to reposition some of these assets to student accommodation, managing your interest rates, managing your FX, right? I think there are a lot of things that the REIT manager can do. And I think specifically also for Elite UK REIT, our fees actually is a percentage of distributable income, and our performance fees is the increase in DPU payout the DPU to our investors. So we're very much aligned. We're not one that will take a percentage of the valuation and just sit pretty for the next few years, and every year just trying to manage the valuers. That's not our job. Our job is really to actively go and do something with the asset.
Okay, thanks. Amelia?
Yes. Maybe I'll share in terms of, because Josh and Cecilia have shared from a perspective of a REIT manager. I think for us, we can talk a little bit from the shoes of a REIT investor, right? Just now, Kenny's slide, I remember the bull and bear. Some of y'all didn't raise hands. I suppose maybe because your view is that 2025 will also be, I think, a lot of that keyword that we keep hearing, uncertainty, right? So 2025, I feel, may not be a straightforward year, probably a bit similar to 2024. There will be periods of ups and downs because a lot of uncertainty over there with Trump coming in. We're not sure exactly what's going to happen. Although analysts out there also feel that with the Trump administration, there's a preference that they would like to keep rates low after all. And in the long term, rates could potentially normalize, although it may take slightly longer. And investors and the market is starting to get used to higher for longer interest rates, right? And maybe some of that has actually also moderated that kind of expectations. And maybe that's why REITs have started to actually pull back in the last quarter. Right, but nonetheless, REITs as an investment, it depends on what you look at it as. Is it short-term trading, or is it part of your portfolio where you're looking for that kind of passive income and you're in for the long term? Like what Kenny mentioned, when the REITs start to sell off, do you get worried and then want to just drop, or are you in for the long term? I think these are questions that as a REIT investor, myself, I'm also a REIT investor. These are questions that I also ask myself. There are still opportunities within the REIT segment, like I shared earlier on, some of these bright spots, some of the opportunities that are coming up. So as an investor, at the REIT manager, there are different things that they're doing to look after the REIT. for us as a REIT investor, there are different things that we also should do to look after our portfolio, right? So we can be a bit more selective. We can do a bit of our homework to look at some of the REITs that are growing and are also trading at perhaps compelling valuations, to do that kind of homework. For investors that prefer to not do that kind of stock picking, we also have 5 REIT ETFs that allow you to invest into the sector more broadly as a whole, right? And maybe just to end tonight's session, Kenny, I'd like to hear your view about the S-REIT market for 2025.
You wait until
Don't
the
let
end.
him go.
You wait until the end, because I will put my key takes away, and also as a REIT investor and also as an advisor to my client, right? So you have my view definitely, right? And at the same time, later you will also have the portfolio manager view, right? So we have a different party REIT manager, SGX, advisor, investor, and also portfolio manager, how they view the market, and also how they construct, how they select the REIT in their managed account. Later, I will hand over to the Philip Capital to really present on that portion. So thank you, Cecilia, thank you, Josh and Emilia, for today's session.
Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone.
Okay.